Hello. Welcome to the Connection Show. I have some news for you. We will most likely no longer be doing the Parenting Connection Show, but I will be moving to family, God, family, and politics. And so that will be a TV show airing in Houston on different media channels and cable cast channels. I think it's channel 14 in Houston, um, on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. And so I will see you there. Today, we're in October, but today we're going to talk about um, what happens in October. We know, one, we have Bully Prevention Month in October. We also have Red Ribbon Week in October. My guest today, Miss Wykesha Dixion, is from Bay Area Turning Point, which is a large domestic violence shelter in the Greater Bay Area, Clear Lake area. They do a lot of good work out there, and I think they've moved to some areas. But Wykesha, I want to welcome you to my show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the warm welcome.
You know, so October, not only is it these other things, it's also Domestic Violence Month. And so tell us a little bit about what, tell us about Bay Area Turning Point.
Sure. So, Bay Area Turning Point, we're a nonprofit organization in the Clear Lake area. We have been around, we just celebrated 31 years. So, we're celebrating 31 years this year. We just had our annual gala where we're continuing to be a voice for the voiceless, continuing to let people know that they don't have to suffer in silence when it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault. We have non-residential and residential services. So, shelter services if you're trying to flee an unsafe situation or an unsafe home. We do have housing available for those individuals in our shelter, and we have we also have a rental assistance program. And then our non-residential services include the counseling, support group, advocacy, and just helping you navigate what your next steps are going to be as you make your way to living a violence-free life. And so we are here in the community helping to bring survivors to safety and bring them to awareness, but also connecting with the community so that you all out there know what domestic violence looks like, what sexual assault looks like, and being a pillar in the community to help us in the fight of violence for all.
Now we know domestic violence is an issue, but how big of an issue is it actually?
So, domestic violence is a big issue. We hear about it. I don't know if everybody out there is watching the news like I'm watching the news, but it's almost like every night on the news, there's someone who has been murdered by a person who they've been in an intimate partner relationship with. And so, while it's something we want to not talk about or we want to keep behind closed doors or my business is my business, what we have to understand is that domestic violence is impacting us largely in the community. We are losing lives. People are important. Their lives are valuable, not just to their family, but we all have a mission and a purpose in life. And we hate for people to take charge or feel that they have the authority to do that. And we see that a lot in the intimate partner relationships because they are trying to gain power and control. And so while we see survivors suffering in silence, what we have to know as a community is it's a big issue. And it's an issue that we have to talk about. It's an issue that we have to be willing to have conversations such as this about so that we can continue to bring forth that awareness so that people know that agencies like Bay Area Turning Point are out in the community to be able to help and to be able to bring that knowledge.
You know, I work with a lot of educators, and so some people will think that domestic violence is just a husband that beats his wife. Um, but really there's other types of we can you talk about the what domestic violence may look like from case by case?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you said case by case, because domestic violence isn't, it's not cookie cutter. It's no one particular way. It's not one particular person. It's not one particular class, religion, sex, political affiliation. It's not one particular group, right? And so what that looks like, and everybody's used to, oh, if I see a person with a black eye, then and if they said the abuser did that, then that's how I know that it's domestic violence. But domestic violence comes in many different forms. We have financial abuse, where abusers tend to take all of the money, not share any of the finances with the person, so they are controlling. And remember, I said in the beginning, the domestic violence is about power and control. And so they take that money and they try to take that power and the control over those finances. Another one is emotional abuse, where you aren't fulfilling, or you are being neglectful in emotions. Or how about if your abuser is screaming at you, cursing at you, yelling at you. Those are verbal abuse, right? We also have psychological abuse, where the abuser tries to play on your mind or make you think, oh, this isn't really happening, or what we term gaslighting, right? So there are many different forms and different types of abuse. We can't just be stuck in what that physical violence looks like, or what we see, the black eye, the broken arm, but it's many different types, and we have to be aware of what that looks like, and you have to know what that looks like, so that you can be able to connect someone to a service. Or if you are a person experiencing those types of abuse, you know what that really looks like and what it is.
So what are some of the domestic violence red flags?
So red flags are important. And when I have talked to survivors before, they don't necessarily see it as red flags. And I think when we're in relationships with people, we don't see it as a red flag, right? We see it as, oh, maybe this person really likes me. But some of the red flags is controlling. Um, I always say nobody likes me that much where they have to know everywhere I go who I'm talking to, what I'm doing. Like, you do not like me and love me that much. Um, Attempting to isolate. So I no longer want you to be a part of your family and friends. I want to move you completely separate to another state. You can't talk on the phone. Another a big one that I see in teenagers is where the person in the relationship, they want to control who you're texting, or they want to control what you wear to school, or who you talk to on the phone, who you're connected to on social media. So there are a lot of different forms. And that jealousy thing, jealousy isn't healthy, and we have to remember and identify that in relationships with people. Being jealous does not mean you love me. That does not equate to that, right? So when you have seen that your partner is becoming very controlling, very jealous, very manipulative, those are red flags that there is possibly danger coming behind that. There's possibly the occurrence of domestic violence potentially happening. And remember, not the hitting, right? There are other forms of what that looks like: the psychological, the emotional. And so it's not always attached to that physical abuse, but being attentive and knowing what those red flags are critical and crucial.
So let's talk about risk factors. You know, in the school system, we talk about at risk students,
Mhm.
students that may be more at risk of not graduating, and so we try to take that on as a head. But what about risk factors for domestic violence? Are there any?
There are risk factors. So some of the risk factors are children or adults who come from volatile familial relationships, right? So if I saw abuse in my home, so if I saw my mom or my dad being abused, we begin to learn or see that that may be an accepting behavior or a tolerable behavior. And so those are risk factors that happen, where people then enter into relationships where some of those same things are happening. Hi. And so some of those same things are happening, and they begin to think, oh, that's something that I'm supposed to take on, right? And so that's one of the biggest risk factors that we see, which is why at our organization we do prevention programs where we help to educate youth. So elementary school, middle school, and high school. We talk to them about healthy boundaries, healthy relationships, and risk factors on what that could possibly be so that they're aware of that, because we don't always know what's happening in the home. And so if we take the time to educate the most vulnerable population, and our kids are the most vulnerable, right? They are the most influential. And so helping to educate them on what that those signs are, or what healthy relationships and healthy boundaries really look like, can help us try to steer domestic violence out of our lives and out of our communities.
Wykesha, what the viewers may not know is that I've had a relationship with a Bay Area Turning Point for 22, 23 years, and I just can't believe how much time has flied. But we talk about when somebody is wanting to leave, that it takes an average of 7 times for a person to actually leave. And I want to say that it may have taken me like, I don't know, about 9, and not that the abuse was always physical, but there was definitely abuse. And sometimes even when you're sick of it, it's still hard to leave, and there's factors that weigh in on that. And why is it so hard for people to leave?
It's hard for people to leave because I'm one of those where I think people have the possibility of changing. And so many survivors get stuck in those relationships because they're looking for the change, or they're looking for who the person was when you first started dating them. I always say when you first start dating somebody, it's their front stage, right? They're putting it on, and they're putting it on thick. And that oftentimes happens in abusive relationships. Who that person first shows up as, and who they eventually show up as their true self, that survivor is looking for that person to come back because they really truly believe that who they met in the beginning is really who this person is. Um,
Right.
and so they get stuck there. Other reasons are children. Um, I'm a mother, and we can't imagine leaving our children behind, right? Or we want our children to sometimes be in a two-parent household. If you didn't come from a two-parent household, and people have said that that's the American dream or thing to be, and you're striving for that, you don't want to lose sight of what your dream may be, of what having a family may feel like. The other thing, and the big one, is finances. Remember, I talked about the financial abuse and the controlling of the money. So if your abuser never gives you any money, and you don't know about agencies such as Bay Area Turning Point, or even if you do, shelter just may not be an option for you, right? Then where do I go? What do I do? How am I supposed to take care of myself? How am I supposed to take care of these children? And so people always ask the question of, well, why doesn't she just leave? Or why doesn't he just leave? And as you stated, the statistics say it takes 7 times for someone to leave for good, but for many, it's more than 7. And so as a community, I'm asking that we stop asking, why don't you just leave? And we consider some of the same reasons we don't leave: bad
Mhm.
relationships, to include work relationships, right?
Mhm.
Work relationships, we'll stay in them for I don't know how long, because sometimes it's feeding something for us. And so use that same
Mhm.
logic with the survivor. It's feeding a home for them, it's
Yeah.
feeding food for them, it's feeding a family for them, right? And
Mhm.
so even though this may be a toxic, traumatizing environment, it's feeding something for them. And we have to be mindful of that.
It's funny how you went to work relationships, and um we've all worked. I hope we've all had a job. Some people stay home, but still, dynamics of abuse, and I know you weren't ready for this question. Dynamics of abuse, can that domestic violence, can that look like something at work?
So with domestic violence, it's about like familiar family relationships. So it's that like intimate partner, mom and child, those kind. However, there are some underlining things within domestic violence, that power and control, that resembles so many other things in other relationships, to include work. So if your supervisor or your coworker is trying to gain a certain power and control, some of those red flags or some of those signs or symptoms, they resemble the same thing in other relationships.
Mm.
And the thing about it is, we accept them sometimes in others, and then we accept them in the toxic relationships. But it's all toxic. It can all be traumatizing to people. But yes, there are some similarities of what happens in those. But when we're with domestic violence, it's more of the family origin of that, the intimate partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, same household members, that type of thing.
Okay. So let's talk about safety planning. I remember when I left, I had to put a plan in place, but this was things that I had learned from the shelter, and I did. So let's talk about somebody needing to leave. What what can that look like, or how can we help a situation?
Yes, so leaving is the most dangerous time. It's the most dangerous time for someone to leave an abuser. And one of the number one reasons why it's the most dangerous time is because that abuser is feeling the sense of losing power and losing control. And so if you are
Wow.
choosing to leave, if you're choosing to no longer stay here, I now no longer have control or power over you. And so that's one of the most dangerous times. And so, Dr. Hodge, you mentioned a really good key point. You planned. It's about planning. And why we term it safety planning is because we want you to safely plan your escape. We want you to safely plan it because, as I stated, it's the most dangerous time. And so, safety planning is key thing if you are deciding to leave your abusive relationship, whether it's you're deciding to go into a shelter or even if you're just deciding to come for non-residential services. It's all about the planning of what that's going to look like. Um, and so we do provide safety planning for survivors that call our hotline, which is if you are a person who is at home or in a relationship that is toxic, that resembles some of the things that we're saying, you have the free option to give us a call. It's free of charge at 281-286-2525. We have people who are ready and prepared to answer the phone 24/7 to help you safely plan your escape and safely plan what your next step is going to be. But some of the things that you can do with safety planning, one of the key ones that I give people is the code word. If you have that person, your bestie, or if it's your next door neighbor, or if it's someone who, a church member that you're close with, if they know you say this particular word when you call them, they know it's time to act. They know 911 is needed. They know emergency services is needed. They know you are in danger. So that is one of the big ones that I tell people of coming up with a safe word. Another one is documents. We tell people all the time, you never know when you may have to pack up and leave. And I never tell people don't necessarily try to get you a bag of clothes and all of that. We can help you do that. Somebody can help you get some more clothes. Your life is more important. But if you are able to get copies of your ID, social security, birth certificates of you, and if it's you and your children, having those are important, especially if you may have to flee to another state, another city. But you being able to have your identification records are key. Another one can be if you pack you a bag that you keep in the trunk of your car, or if you keep at your neighbor's house. Um, and a big one that people can do is call 911. 911 is an option to come and be a safe option for you. We always, as advocates, we are pushing information out to police departments to offer them training, be able for them to go to training so that they can become also educated on how to assist survivors on the scene. And so I want people to know that you can call 911 for assistance. You can call our crisis hotline. But if you are feeling like your life is in danger, you can pick up the phone. You can call 911 for someone to come and be a safe option for you and for your family if that is needed.
So, what if I do have a phone and there is an opportunity, but yet I don't transportation?
And that's a big one, Dr. Hodge. I think everybody thinks everybody has a car or has the ability to get where they gotta go, but that's not true. That's also another controlling thing that happens in relationships, right? You may see a car parked out there, but you bet not drive it, or I'm taking the keys, right? And that fear has now set up. And now what am I supposed to do? So there are many agencies, even ours at Bay Area Turning Point. We provide what we term what's no, I'm not it's not term, but what's out there called Uber. And so if you are immediately trying to flee to get out, we do provide transportation assistance. We provide for you to be able to flee that environment and get to where you're going. There are other organizations that if you have secured a safe shelter option, that they do provide free transportation to get you from where you are to get you to that location. And so we know that those are very present and very real barriers for survivors. And so we do try to make those accommodations and from our funders, from our donors, and saying, hey, this is a need for somebody who's trying to get to safety. And we're thankful that we do have the ability and the funds to be able to support survivors in that way.
Miss Dixon, so one of my concerns, if I wanted to get away, my concern would be he'll come find me at the shelter.
Mhm.
What safeguards do y'all have in place?
So this one of the safeguards that we do have is we have staff who are 24/7 at our facility. And so we have camera systems, we have locked gates, we have locked doors. And so we also have relationships with police departments within our area that do patrol our shelter. They do patrol even our administrative office. And so we have those relationships where they know the criticalness of people who are coming into our facility as well as what their safety may look like. Coming into our facility, we talk about let's turn off your location. Let's turn off that phone completely if you feel that unsafe, and we can help provide you a phone, which we do that. We do have cell phones that we can provide to our clients. And so coming into our facility, we help you think through the, okay, I've walked away, now what? Right? Because that can be just as scary of the starting over, or he's going to find me. And so we do have safeguard measures that we provide in our facility and around our facility, as well as when we meet with clients during casework and working with them one-on-one, so that they feel secure, or as best we can. Let me say that, because I don't think coming from an abusive situation, in an immediate crisis like that, that you're always going to feel immediately safe. And so we work with the client and meet them where they are and providing what they need, and making it not about us, but what is it that you need in this moment so that you feel secure
And
and
this is
safe.
the thing, and when you do a transition like this, you have to be patient because when you go into shelter, one thing I found when I went into shelter that I was with other broken, hurting people, and so hurting people hurt people. So you have to be patient and really use the resources there that are provided for you. I think one of the greatest things, Bay Area Turning Point, that I remember the year that I was going to become a teacher, that they paid for my teacher certificate. And so I'm not saying go to Bay Area Turning Point so you can get a teacher certificate, but there was a support there that people had a fund
Mhm.
and at no cost to me, and so it was a need that I had. And so when you go into shelter, or if you have somebody going into shelter, just, advocate for them to advocate for themselves, to take advantage of what's been provided. And so, you have how do y'all stay, how are you able to provide these services?
Yes. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Hodge. And it just feels good to know that Bay Area Turning Point is making impacts like it is or like it has. And so we're still in the business of making life changing moments for survivors that come through our doors. And we're able to do that. Because of our funders, we're able to do that because they continue to invest in us as we continue to invest in clients. The other thing is we're able to do it because of the community. So we appreciate people who partner with us. I call them partners, because they partner with us to create those life changing moments, for survivors. And so we have donors who give to us on a regular basis. We have people who come and volunteer for our agency. And so, yes, we have a staff of about right over 50 individuals. And so, yes, we come and we show up and we do the work Monday through Friday, but it is those who are outside of our walls that continue to help us do what it is that we do. And so we appreciate you if you are listening, or if you have been a donor of Bay Area Turning Point, or a volunteer, or even if you've been a client. You've helped to bridge the gap, and you've helped to make a difference in the lives of so many people who have called our hotline, who are still calling our hotline. And though we want to end violence, statistics are showing that there is a 40% increase going on regarding domestic violence. And so that means that
Wow.
hotline call is still going to ring. And so we
So what can
appreciate
the
you.
community do? Um, we have like 3 minutes
Okay.
left. What can the community do to bring it into domestic violence?
So, what the community can do is what we're doing here today. Let's have conversations about it. Let's talk about it. Because when people choose to not have the conversation, people continue to sit and suffer in silence. And so, let's be willing to share platforms and share conversations, partnering with agencies such as Bay Area Turning Point to offer your resources and your time can be beneficial. You can link up with us at www.bayareaturningpoint.org. You can also check out our Facebook page. You can also call our hotline at 281-286-2525. And we can explore many ways that you can connect to help us end violence for all. There's room at the table for everybody because this is impacting everybody.
Wykesha, thank you so much for what you do at Bay Area Turning Point. Bay Area Turning Point will always be a one of those milestones in my life, and an organization that I'll always be appreciative to. Um, y'all donate to Bay Area Turning Point, but also know that they're there and there's other shelters there for people in need, and just build your awareness. Like she said, we got to talk about it. Thank you so much, Wykesha. We will see you next week on God, Family, Politics. Bye.
Bye.